You know, when I read the book in the 80s, I thought it was a cautionary tale, and she was writing about the problems in the Russia in the 30s. And she was writing about the problems behind the Iron Curtain, and this is what might happen in America if we ended up, you know, ruled by a Stalin or a Mao or whatever. And I was kind of, and I think that I was oblivious to the encroaching authoritarian regulation and centralized control. Because I didn't really have an appreciation of what is money and what is inflation. In fact, I legitimately didn't really understand money or inflation until the year 2020. And
you understand it now.
Yeah, and I don't consider myself to be stupid, right? And like objectively, you know, like I was reasonably successful as an academic, you know, at MIT. I was the top of my class, and I was first in my class in high school, and I was reasonably successful in business. I took company public, but with all of that academic and I made a ton of money as an investor. So with all my success, I really just had a massive blind spot toward money and inflation. And the issue there is half of the economy is your productivity from what you do, measured on your P&L. And the other half of your economy is your wealth, which is how you store your productivity over time in the bank, and that's in the currency. So, you know, I would say back then I thought, well, it's cautionary tale and it's allegorical and it's like Animal Farm in 1984, right? All these things that might happen to us. And today I would say, yeah, I guess it all happened, right? Like 40 years later, it was happening. It was happening in the money from 1971. Once we went off the gold standard, the money was losing 7% of its value a year from 1971, which means that centralized authorities were stealing 7% of everything you had from you every year. Since 1971, but I didn't understand it, my family didn't understand it. And I think that on the other side, right, with regard to regulatory encroachment, I think it's pretty obvious now, right, that we have, especially in the past 20 years, you've seen regulatory encroachment in so many areas of business for so many different reasons that is kind of unprecedented in the history of America, but it was always there. So I would say, yeah, whatever we thought was a problem somewhere else has arrived to be a problem here today, and so the book is apocryphal and I guess fairly instrumental in informing us. So John Galt says, withdraw your productivity, withdraw your talent from the economy because it is corrupt. And Satoshi said, withdraw your wealth from an economy that is corrupt. In essence, Satoshi is saying that to the extent that you could build a multi-billion-dollar company, you could generate hundreds of millions or billions of dollars of profits, but if someone is elected that then triples the money supply, they steal 2/3 of all your labor for the last 30 years, and they do it in about a week. And so if someone can, in essence, steal everything you've done and everything you're ever going to do with the click of a button, then you can't win by playing that game. And so John Galt kind of said, well, we know we can't win no matter how hard we try, so we should just withdraw and go on strike. And Satoshi took a different point of view, which is, yeah, we know we can't win as long as we hold the currency of a corrupt government. So the only way to win is to create an immortal, incorruptible currency. And of course, the only way to make an incorruptible or immortal currency is to get the people out of the way. And so in essence, you end up with millions and millions of disinterested computers that can't do anything but process the protocol. And there is no discretion of a CEO or a corporation or a government in the midst of it. But both of them, you know, are heroic figures that said, you're in a no-win situation as long as you stay in a corrupt system. You need to depart the system. They had one of them, you know, gives a solution of Galt's Gulch and strike, and the other one gives a solution of shift your money to cyberspace.
Michael, I don't think I've ever heard it put so well. That Galt's Gulch would be equivalent to the Bitcoin. I totally agree with that.
I realize that Bitcoin wasn't the first crypto project. The other projects all relied upon some kind of oracle or some intermediary or some centralized agent of some sort, the things that were launched by, say, Nick Szabo before. And they abandoned all those projects because ultimately they all had an attack surface. And the attack surface was that corporation subject to regulatory capture or that entity. And so along, you know, who is John Galt? Right? No, who is John Galt? He builds something and he disappears. Who is Satoshi Nakamoto? I think Satoshi realized that the only way for us to make this work is we have to build a system that is completely separate from the existing financial structure, the existing power structure. And so the heroic thing to do is, he didn't raise money. He didn't do an ICO and raise $500 million to capitalize it, even though there was plenty of capital in 2010 for tech companies. He didn't keep any for himself. He didn't stick around, right? And he created something which, you know, Bitcoin, we've got this thing in Bitcoin called Pizza Day. And the significance of Pizza Day is the Bitcoin network fires up January 3rd, 2009, and then it trades with no value until about, May 2010, 500 plus days. And on Pizza Day, it's worth a fraction of a penny. Okay, so the price that was paid by Satoshi to create something that was virtuous and uncorrupted and uncorruptible was give up fame and fortune and self-interest and expedience and any kind of get-rich-quick or simple notion, and do it the hard way, and do it in such a way that, you know, what do you get if you mine Bitcoin? You get more Bitcoin. What's that worth? Well, it's worth nothing initially until people decide that having something which is incorruptible and immortal and orthogonal to the entire corrupt $500 trillion financial system is something they might want to join in on. And the risk he took was, well, maybe people won't want to join. Maybe people won't believe in freedom and sovereignty and truth and, you know, and self-determination through cryptography, but maybe they will. And Pizza Day was that first, okay, it's worth a couple of fractions of a penny. And then it's worth $1, and then it's worth $10, it's worth $100, it's worth $1,000, it's worth $10,000. And so today it's alive, and it's something, but it was able to be bootstrapped without a CEO or a board of directors or a headquarters or a nexus or any early founders. And therefore, it does have this characteristic of incorruptibility. You can hold a gun to my head and tell me to change Bitcoin and you blow my head off. I can't change it. It's incorruptible, immortal, ineffable. You can say, by pain of law, shut down all your Bitcoin mining in the entire country. That happened about a year ago in China. They shut down half the network, had no impact, just a slight blip. The Chinese shut the entire thing down. You could shut it down in any state, in any country. You can't kill it because it doesn't have a head. It's a diffuse, decentralized swarm creature of sorts. And the price that we paid, the price we paid was paid by the early cypherpunks and by the true believers and Satoshi Nakamoto, which is the selfless act of giving this incorruptible, immortal, fair, equitable network to the world without any fiduciary gain or interest and without any original sin. You know, and where do you see that happen in the Western world? You know, occasionally, and when it occasionally happens, something good comes of it. And that's the story of Satoshi, and who is John Galt?